You are at the stage now where you need to hire your first employee, and this feels scary to you. You're definitely taking a risk when you hire an employee. You have to spend money, and are they going to be able to do the things you want them to do? And these kinds of things can keep small business owners up at night. This episode is going to have some hard advice for you, especially around the risk you're taking, but also some tips on how to ensure that you are selecting the right person that's going to be able to help your business grow. Let me explain. That's coming up now. So when most small businesses are hiring their first employee, they don't want to commit too much to this employee, but they also want to make sure that they get the right person. And that makes sense. But what often I see happening is those hiring decisions, you're compromising because you don't want to spend the money. And then you find someone who can do those tasks that you initially want, and they do them just fine. But in a small business, things change, and they change pretty fast. There's a new opportunity. A customer has a weird request, and a process that you were relying on breaks. And that person you hired with the money you had isn't really a fit anymore. What you needed was someone who could adapt, figure things out, and manage things you didn't anticipate. And now you're still doing the things that you didn't want to be doing, that you were hoping this person was going to be doing, and you're still constrained by your lack of resources. It's not that you hired wrong per se, it's that you didn't think big enough, didn't think long term enough. So I'm going to offer up some ideas here about how to think about your first hire a bit differently. In a small business, you don't need a specialist. So don't think small like I need someone who's going to answer the phones and someone who's going to work at the desk. Sure, you may need that, but you need a bunch more things. You need people with a broad set of skills that can handle whatever comes up. That means hiring, I would say, for three things. You need to hire for, one, their ability to learn. So these are things you're going to look at when you're interviewing. You're going to hire for judgment. Do they make good decisions, gather the right information, and use that to inform how they act? And then you need them to be someone with a lot of initiative who takes the next step, but also keeps in mind that in a small business, their decisions can have a big impact, and they got to think long term about the impact of their decisions. So these are selection criteria you're going to make in that first hire. And then you're going to be wondering, well, what about the specific skills I'm hiring for? So let's just say you're an auto mechanic and you've been doing this sort of from the side, but you're going to try and make this a bigger deal. And of course, you want to hire maybe a mechanic. So you need those kind of mechanic skills. Now, you can't overlook that. But when it comes to what are you going to sacrifice? Are you going to sacrifice all these skills that you need from this person to grow in their business? Or you're going to sacrifice a little bit of the technical skill that you could teach? Because if they have the ability to learn, they're going to be able to learn this technical piece. You need to be thinking about a person who can grow. Someone who has the basic skills but can't do more, can't grow. So when you're interviewing, you're going to pay less attention to the technical skills. What kind of vehicles have they fixed? And more to, what kind of entrepreneurial spirit have they demonstrated in the past? What is the latest thing that they've learned to do? When was a time when they learned to do something that was really hard? How did they go about that? When did they show initiative in a role? And what did that look like? Do they see the big picture? Do they figure things out? These are the things you need to be looking for more of and somewhat less of the technical skill. But back to this whole situation around money, because that's real in a small business. Whatever you think you can afford, consider if you can bump that figure up by 15 to 20% and pay that. It sounds scary. If you don't do that, here's what's likely going to happen. You're going to get a cheap hire who needs constant management. You're going to spend a lot of time with that person, directing them, fixing mistakes, answering questions that they could have been figuring out themselves if they had that capacity. A better hire who's going to cost you a bit more upfront is going to manage themselves faster. Is going to take the initiative to learn. They're going to be learning independently. And eventually, and maybe in less time, they're going to be making improvements to your systems, leaving you chance to run your business, to think more strategically, and to look for different opportunities. The one thing I want to remind you of is that you can't just hire someone and throw them in. Doesn't matter if you paid a fortune for them and they're the best person ever. You can't just throw them in. You have to bring them on board and onboard them and do it properly. Initially, you need to check in with them a lot. And as time goes, you can spend less time checking in with them, but that's normal. And that's how they're going to understand what it takes and what kind of vision you have for your business. If you hire someone with ability, judgment, and this sense of ownership or initiative, your initial investment will pay off pretty quickly. They're going to become self-sufficient, leaving you the opportunity to do other things. So when you're getting ready to hire your first employee, think bigger, be uncomfortable. Presumably, as an entrepreneur, you're someone who's a little bit more who's a little bit more comfortable being uncomfortable. Uh, but find somebody who's going to help you grow your business rather than just do tasks, because the tasks you have them doing today are not going to be the tasks you need them doing next month or next year. And this is how your first hire is really going to set the stage for you to grow faster, bigger, and make more money. So if this was helpful, please check out some of the other episodes I'm doing for small businesses. I am putting a link to the playlist in the show notes, and have yourself a great week.